Fern and myself have been out all day hunting for gold nuggets with my metal detector, and I managed to find five of them in an absolutely flogged area. It brings my total to 36 out of this one spot. And it made me start thinking about the really amazing find, the Lucky Strike specimen. Now, if you haven't seen this, I will leave a link in the description below to a news article. It was a massive gold specimen with 80 ounces, $240,000 worth of gold in it, dug up with an Equinox 800. Now, an Equinox 800 is like a $1,200 metal detector. It's even outdated because there is now the Equinox 900, which was just released. And it made me think I am not overly surprised that an amateur prospector found this. The gentleman who found that massive nugget is someone who's only just started in this hobby. And I think that makes sense because when you start in a hobby, you're keen to learn and you don't have any biases. Biases seem to cost us a lot. And I've 110% still make these mistakes. Your bias makes you do things habitually, and having habits means that you might overlook the obvious. A person who buys an Equinox 800 as their first metal detector doesn't necessarily know exactly what they want to do. Maybe they're into coin hunting, maybe they're into gold prospecting. They kind of want to get into the hobby in a good way where they're buying a quality machine, but they're not dumping tens of thousands of dollars on gear like I have. And it's a very reasonable route to take. When you take that route, you're more willing to experiment. And what I mean by that is perhaps you don't know exactly where to go looking for gold. So you end up in places that most prospectors using the same resources don't end up. So I use Earth Resources here in Victoria to help me locate areas that are worth prospecting for my time. But there are certainly areas outside of that data, outside of that information, that have really good gold. And I found some of those spots. And every time I find one of those spots, I get reminded that I don't necessarily have to go to where gold has been found before to find good gold. And by the same token, a new prospector is just as likely to go to an area that's flogged by every single person and dig the targets that sound like rubbish because they don't have any confirmation bias when it comes to things like having dug up 200 shotgun pellets in the last week. And that's a really important thing to note because if that guy dug the one signal that sounded like a beer can with what is an entry level gold prospecting and coin hunting machine, and he found an 80-ounce piece, how many other prospectors with high end, high quality machines walked past that 80-ounce piece because it sounded like a beer can? How many? Because their confirmation bias has told them that they had dug 30 beer cans in the past that all sound like that, and they've never found anything bigger than a gram. So why would it be any different with this one? I literally just had that experience myself a couple of weeks ago where I dug up the biggest specimen I have ever found. I haven't released that video yet because I've been working the spot to finish it before I release it. And that target was deep. It was 8 inches down, and it was immediately after I just dug up an old timer's chisel, which is insane because if I had gone along with, and I found a lot of chisels, especially in that area. If I had gone with, oh, this is probably just another piece of wedge, another piece of hammer, another piece of whatever old timer junk, then there's a very good chance I would have walked away from the biggest specimen of my life. In fact, I did the day before because it was a very faint signal that sounded somewhat like ground noise, and I opted to go to a place only 20 meters away that I knew had good, solid little point one pieces of gold pretty much everywhere. And I left it in the ground. And the next day I dug it up and got the biggest specimen of my life. So I think the trick is to do something that shocks you out of your routine so you don't let your biases take over and destroy your opportunities at finding something like an 80-ounce specimen because they're still out there. And how many of you walked over because you've ignored those signals? New prospectors bring new ideas, new prospectors bring new, fresh perspective. New prospectors aren't afraid to take the risk of failing, and they will proactively go out there to learn, and in doing so they stumble across new methods, new equipment tweaks, new ground that seasoned prospectors may have overlooked.